Chers camarades européens, bonjour, good morning, kalimera.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Ahojte.
Hello, everybody.
Bom dia.
Labadiena.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
We want to say that we're so glad to be part of this Euroscola project, and we're so much looking forward to living the European spirit today all together.
My fellow Europeans, I ask you, as we prepare to discuss the issues of today and set forth a vision for the future of Europe, should we not strive to be a strong Europe, a diverse Europe, a Europe that looks to the future rather than dwelling on the past, and most importantly, a Europe that helps other countries up rather than putting them down? Garamila Mahagwiv, thank you.
Et n'oublions pas que même si de temps de crise,
in times of crisis, even in times of despair as well, and in times of austerity measures as well, it is absolutely vital that we cling on to democracy and cling on to hope as well. It is a duty for Europeans, a duty for young Europeans as well. It really is a duty for all of us today.
merci beaucoup.
In this hall, we have gathered a small part of the European youth. So I would like to send a message to all of you. Be attentive, be reasonable, be investigative, be positive, and most of all, be hopeful. You are the people that will determine the future of the European Union. Thank you.
And I hope we will all have a very good day together.
Merci beaucoup et bon courage tout le monde.
Merci.
Je me présente, je suis Edouard Martin, député européen français.
I'm Edouard Martin. I'm a French MEP. I hope you will have very hard and harsh questions to put to me. I hope we will have a good exchange. Welcome to Strasbourg, the seat of the European Parliament, and you are here at home.
It is known that the agreement that has been signed between Greece and Troika. How is the European Parliament planning to act in case this agreement is not fulfilled, bearing in mind that the people in Greece in the last 80 years are under unfavorable and trialsome circumstances because of overtaxation and austerity measures? Thank you so much.
Merci pour cette question.
Thank you for that question. There have been many debates on that as well. Well, the Troika, I think, is an illegal, illegitimate organisation. That's my personal view. If you look at it, if you look at what has been inflicted on the Greek population by that Troika, it's terrible. It's unprecedented, never seen that before. I have to say that I greatly admire the Greeks because nobody, I think, has had to go through what you've gone through, and everybody acknowledges, the Troika and the IMF acknowledge this now, acknowledge and recognise that the Greek debt simply cannot be repaid. In a century or so, in 100 years or so, that debt cannot be repaid. It's just not possible. There were so many harsh choices imposed by the Troika. But again, it's a political message sent out by the Council. The Council is so hypocritical. Our heads of state are so hypocritical, including my own, the previous one. It's a case of punishing, I suppose that's what they're wanting to do, singling out the Greeks and punishing them, putting them on the naughty step and showing others, saying, look, this is what happened to Greece. Be careful. If you're not good, this is what will happen to you. That's what it was all about, really. And I'm bitter about this because, there is a hierarchy established in the treaties. You've got the 3% of debt below national GDP that has to be respected, and what's going to happen to those that don't respect it? There'll be immediate sanctions. But then there are other treaties, and with these other treaties, some heads of state just couldn't care less about how they're respected. Poland, Hungary, what are they doing? They are just not implementing those treaties. They're putting up barbed wire in their countries to prevent migrants from coming in some cases. And, you know, they're just flouting European treaties, left, right and centre, and no sanctions for them. So the Greeks were used as an example, and we have to stop that. That mustn't happen. I think, you know, we need to allow the Greek population to breathe again. It's been shown, as I said, economically as well, that it just isn't working like that. You're not going to be able to repay that debt. And I'm one of those who say we need to stop with that now. We really do. It's an economic massacre.
How the EU intends to deal with hate speech, for example, from or against Muslims, Jewish, nationalists, etc. Will you tolerate it in the name of freedom of expression? Thank you.
L'Europe, comme dans
Europe and the 28 member states, racism, acts of anti-Semitism or of racism has always condemned such acts. We always say this in this hemicycle. People who sit on that side, the extreme right wing, they always put forward the freedom of expression, but freedom of expression doesn't allow you to insult anyone, whatever the origin of the person, the religion of the person, or what have you. But these people always talk about the freedom of expression, the extreme right wing. And here at European Parliament, and I can say that because the President of European Parliament, who doesn't belong to my political party, has adopted very strict sanctions against MEPs who said things that were racist, anti-Semitic, and this has no place here. You young people who have an open mind, you know that you're going to travel either because of work or because of pleasure. It is your duty to fight any type of racism, any type of anti-Semitism, because this is the glue of our democracy. I said that Europe was a space of peace, or where peace reigns for the past 70 years. But peace is something so fragile. You have to nurture it every day. You have to be sensitive. You have to know, because people who say such things may trigger off wars, and we don't want that.
Since we live in a very modern era where a robot already has a citizenship in Arabia, I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion on technologies? Should we develop them, and will it benefit us economically, and is it actually a risk for us? Thank you.
Oui, bien sûr qu'il faut.
Yes, of course. We need to develop digital technology, and that's a priority for Europe. There are lots of calls for projects for funding or co-funding digital technology, digital projects. We want all European citizens to have access to broadband, and yes, there's development of more robots and so on. What's the status of robots going to be? We've been thinking about that. What about the legal status? You know, you talk about driverless cars. Who's going to be responsible if there is an accident? So these are important subjects, but we do need to carry on developing digital technology, because otherwise we will lag behind all other regions of the world. But yes, we need to think carefully about it. Robots and new technology. Some say, and I don't know, I hope they're wrong, but let's imagine that all this develops faster than we think it's going to. It could have an impact on employment, couldn't it, on jobs? So how are we going to fund our social model? How are we going to finance that in future if that happens? Workers and companies pay taxes and wages and so on. What happens if in future everything is done by robots, and then there are no more taxes and so on? How are we going to live? I'm sure you'll have noticed in your country, in France it's like that anyway, in big hypermarkets you get more and more unmanned tilled, automatic cash tills and so on, and in future that's going to be developed even further. You will just pass your shopping trolley under an electronic scanner that will tell you how much you need to pay. So and there won't be any more staff, but we have to carry on developing technology. We have to, and Europe needs to help with that. There are calls for projects, as I said, and companies meeting European criteria can get funding or get co-funding. It is a priority for us.
Recently, the media has highlighted the gender pay gap that continues in many job sectors across the world. And do you feel that the EU is doing enough to combat gender inequality?
Bravo, jeune homme, je suis fier.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and I'm so glad it was a young man who asked the question. I don't know whether you know, but I'm in the Women's Committee as well here at the European Parliament. We are lagging behind in gender equality. That really is true. We've got some recent figures. That was a Eurostat's 2016-2017 figures. I'm not sure. I think it was last year. Women earn 17% less than men. Those are the figures, and it gets worse with retirement. There, women are 40% less well off than the men. When they decide to have a child, well, they give birth to the child, they take maternity leave, so they have gaps in their careers, and that means they end up with a lower pension. So we're not doing very well in Europe. But again, it's a matter for individual member states. There have been quite a lot of decisions handed down by the European Court of Justice on the question of gender equality, and the court has often found against the countries because of these disparities. I think that Sweden has done well on gender equality with its gender parity laws, and there are other laws being passed in other countries as well. In many companies, including the company where I used to work, women know that they're earning less than a man. However, if you want to take your case to court as a woman, you have to prove that you earn less than your male colleague, and that means you have to know how much that male colleague is earning, and by law, you don't get that information in France. So what we want now is an obligation for transparency, so that women can prove that they are victims of gender-based discrimination. And I'm sure that once that law is there on transparency, the situation will improve. So, young man, you need to help women to achieve gender equality. So we need to be demanding transparency on wages in all companies and in all EU member states.
Things such as recycling are such simple ways of living an environmentally friendly life every day of our lives. If we can train young people to do this every single day subconsciously as an act that they carry out, then we will move forward in the best possible way. However, over recent years, we feel that we have become too nice, and that we need to start instilling in people what the true meaning of climate change will be on the future. We need to impose a shock value that will encourage people to stand up and do what is right. Advertising could also play a major role. We know that the world of advertising exists all around us. Celebrities endorse products every day, and we live our lives now in a world that is heavily governed by advertising. Therefore, if we could present pictures, images of celebrities and famous people endorsing an environmentally and healthy lifestyle, then surely we would be able to eradicate some of the really harmful ways we are living our lives. We have policy currently, but implementation is key. If we do not implement the policies we have, then nothing will be effective. Therefore, we have to be stricter, and governments and the EU alike must hold consequences, hold people accountable when they break goals and deadlines.
We as a group believe your rights of privacy and data protection should only be infringed upon when the decision has gone through the judiciary system. We also, however, understand that there are extreme cases where the general public is in immediate danger and there is enough evidence to infringe these rights. We suggest that these exceptions can only go up to a certain level, such as going through people's phone and internet history, but not being allowed to go through someone's home. Second of all, the system of punishment we propose is going through a thorough review system which looks at how the country, the member state, was allowed to join the EU in the first place, warning them about the infringements of human rights, and during this time, giving them a chance to amend their mistakes. Finally, next we propose sanctions such as freezing funds or other monetary sanctions. And finally, we propose that Article 7 should be enacted.
So there was a proposal brought forward about the idea of a festival. A debate was carried out on whether the festival should focus on national or international aspects. Yet, upon debate, it was decided that both were very necessary for it to be a diverse and accepting festival. So we proposed that the host countries would change on a regular basis and that it would be carried out on a weekly basis, perhaps sometime in the summer. Travel subsidies would be introduced, perhaps funded by EU governments or national governments, which would make travelling to the event more accessible. The events would focus on all elements of local and cultures from other areas of Europe, such as dance and music and food. Yet it was also brought forward that we wanted to teach younger generations the trades of that area to ensure that we can preserve the different trade links and the different elements that make a specific country diverse in its cultural opinions. On the topic of media and the media advertising for this issue, it was decided that we felt television coverage on channels across Europe would be necessary for this to be a success. And this would cater for the people who cannot travel for different reasons, be those because of the distance or because of their money. And it would also offer the choice of what people want to engage themselves in and what people value themselves. We also focused a lot on education. So it was a consensus that cultural heritage needs to be linked with different areas of government economies and different aspects. So education was a major factor. So we felt that we could target children at a primary level and a secondary level. So we had the idea that there would be different communication links between children in primary schools, such as using web chats or pen pals, which would be perhaps co-funded by the European Union in less economically developed areas if they couldn't provide the resources to be able to do this. And we felt that this would teach children an openness to every culture at a young age and hopefully reduce the rates of hate crimes and racism as they go on through life.
We concluded that regarding to education we talk about was informing the youngsters about EU and how nations gathers together. More information about the aims of EU at schools should be presented, and our group decided that it should be compulsory, there should be compulsory education about social issues in order to raise awareness. And this is very critical. The young people should be aware of the issues going on in the world. So lastly, we talk about that
More programs like Euroscola and Erasmus should be organized to emphasize the importance of integration. Second topic we discussed was the expanding of EU. And in the end, we decided that EU should keep expanding as long as the countries fulfill the following conditions. The countries should maintain the human rights, there should be equality of gender, there should be liberty, solidarity, democracy, freedom, and independence. On the other hand, we talk about the defense system of the EU, and we ended up having that there should be no common military for EU for the following reasons. There would be too much disagreements between member states as to how it should be used, which would cause conflicts, and EU should promote peace to its all members to strive for a peaceful environment.
We should tie human rights terms to these aid agreements for countries who are not currently in alignment with United Nations standards. An independent commissioner will verify that these terms have been successfully implemented, and by helping these countries to develop their economies, we are also creating potential trade partners for Europe in the future. Our fourth and final proposal in this report is to introduce a help centre programme across the European Union. This would be implemented in two parts, which I will now outline. The first part involves providing initial advice to asylum seekers in refugee camps on both the asylum process and information about the help centres. The second part is the actual help centres for migrants who have been granted asylum in the European Union and possibly in refugee camps as well. These centres are to be strategically located in places where migrants are entering Europe in large numbers. Supports offered in these centres would include help in finding a job and a home, free access to basic education, and very importantly, access to healthcare for refugees who have recently arrived in the area. Temporary accommodation for those who are currently seeking somewhere to live would also be provided. Migrants would then be relocated from these help centres to various countries around the European Union based on quotas, as previously debated by the European Parliament.
Our first proposal would be that there's more direct support and involvement within schools. It's very clear that there's uncertainty of the link between skills and jobs for young people. It should be the responsibility of the EU to provide information and support in schools to ensure that students are aware of the opportunities that are available to them. It was suggested by our committee that students should also be educated further on their rights as an employee to ensure that they're not placed into just any employment, but are also in an employment which is filled with mutual respect and trust. Our second proposition also highlighted the systems which are currently available for job seekers. It was felt by our committee that the current schemes such as Euromez are insufficient. One of our groups had also prepared, as Benedict said, the proposal of a new and innovative system in the form of a website or an app called Euromex. This taps into the influx of social media within our society today and makes job seeking much more accessible for everyone, whilst also working alongside the companies. It allows the use of filters so that the young person can highlight the qualifications that they have and also the type of job which they are looking for. I think that this proposal would allow young job seekers to feel as if they are equipped with the tools that they need to find a secure job within our society today.